Hello, I'm Jessica Ryan Keeney. I am a family law attorney. I'm licensed to practice law in the state of California. I am also the Department of Child Support Services attorney for two small Northern California counties. Today, I am going to teach you how to fill out a proof of service and how to serve a response to a governmental notice of motion, as well as an income and expense declaration. And I am going to teach you how to put those two documents plus your proof of service together and get them filed with the court. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. I'll do what I can to answer them. I cannot and I will not give you legal advice, so just know that in this video, when I'm describing something, I'm describing how I handle the situation. I'm describing how others handle the situation, and I think it's competent. And if I answer any of your questions in the comments below, it's not legal advice. It's me telling you how I would handle the situation or how I've seen the situation handled, but I can't tell you that it's the proper way to handle the situation in your case. Below, you will see a list of things that you're going to need. Go ahead, read that in the comments. Go ahead, read that in the description. Eventually, there will be a write-up about how to do all of this on my webpage, probably also on Lassen County Department of Child Support Services webpage. And when it's there, we'll update that in the description. But for the time being, go check out the description for everything you need. Here we are. We have the proof of service by mail pulled up. I was able to get a free copy of this online. Link where I got it is provided in the description. We know that it's called the proof of service because the name is right there. It's proof of service by mail. And the name of the document also appears here down at the bottom of the document. I like to call documents by their name and not their number, because if somebody messes up the document number a little bit, it's very likely I will have no idea what they're talking about. But if they mess up the name of the document a little bit, I can still figure out what they're talking about. But for those of you who like document numbers, this is FL 335, and we can tell because the number is right up in the upper right-hand corner. Something else that's interesting for you to know about documents is down in the lower left-hand corner. You can see when the document came out, and in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the laws that apply to that document and the subject matter of the document. So that can be interesting if you need to do legal research later, or if you have a question about service, since this is a proof of service. So here we are. This is our fictitious case in Lassen County, in which Jessica Smith is the mom or mother, Sam Smith is the dad or father. Lassen County Department of Child Support Services is a party to the case, and mom and dad are both parties to the case right now. They have a court hearing on April 1st, 2020. Never mind the fact that that date's actually passed. This is fiction. And that hearing is to modify support. So Jessica's self-represented. She will put her name right up here, Jessica Smith. She'll put her address, which is P.O. Box 234, and she lives in Some City, California, with zip code 98765. Wow, I got original there. Now we'll put her phone number. And of course, if you're filling this out for yourself, you're going to put your information there. That phone number there, I don't know if that's a real phone number. Please don't call it. Jessica has no fax number. You don't have to put none if you don't have one. As an attorney, I decided several years ago not to continue having a fax machine and a fax number, so I specifically put none there to draw people's attention to the fact that I don't have a fax number. Doesn't stop people from faxing things to my various clients, but we deal with that as it happens. Okay, so in this situation, Jessica is self-represented, so we write in pro per here. If you're filling this out for yourself, you're likely self-represented. And so you will write improper as well. I said this is in the county of Lassen, so we're going to put that information there. The court address goes next. And that's the street address, and then next is the mailing address. Some courthouses actually have a different mailing address than they do a street address, but that's not the case in Lassen County. Now we put the city, state, and zip. And if there's a branch name, we put it there. In this case, there's no branch name. Now we put the name of the county here because it was actually Lassen County Department of Child Support Services that opened up this case. Now in the income and expense declaration that I printed out as an example, we were in the fictitious county of some county and Todd Smith was opposing party. Never mind that, just play along with this hypothetical that we have here. I'm reusing documents that I created in earlier videos. Okay, Sam Smith is the respondent and Jessica Smith is the other party. She's the mom. Now we're going to put our case number here, FS190023. This probably, maybe, is a real case number. I just made it up for this situation. Okay, so on this proof of service, we have the option to put a hearing date here. It's a really good idea to put the hearing date here. A lot of times when you're serving something, you're serving it specific to a hearing date. In this situation, we're serving a response to a governmental notice of motion for a hearing date on April 1st. Sometimes, though, we're not serving things in conjunction with a hearing date, but if it's in conjunction with a hearing date, fill it in there. Hearings at 2 p.m., because that's what time hearings are in Lassen County for child support. And I hate to admit that I can't remember what department I appear in all the time, but I'm going to say it's Department 3. Okay, so we've got the title block, as I call it, filled out. That's the top of the document. Section 1, I am at least 18 years of age, not a party to this action, and I am a resident or employee in the county where the mailing took place. So this is a statement in Section 1 that applies to the person who's going to serve the documents for you. You cannot serve your own documents in your own case. Now, if you have an attorney, your attorney can serve the documents for you because the attorney is not a party to the case. Your adult children can serve your documents for you, although I usually try to encourage people not to do that. And definitely don't have your adult children serve the documents if the child support in the case dealt with them. Leave your adult kids out of it. Get a friend who's over 18 and not a party to the case to serve it. Hire a process server. Get your neighbor to do it. Leave your kids who are adults out of it. Because, see, the person who files the document has to be over the age of 18 and not a party to the case. Okay, I beat that dead horse. So Section 2 is where the person who serves the documents is going to fill out their residence or business address. So if I were serving these documents for a client, I would put my office address here. Now, you're filling out this proof of service as your own document. You're going to fill out as much of it as possible, but you have to leave Section 2 blank, because the person who serves the documents is going to fill that out. Section 3 is where we're going to write what we served. So I like to put the title of the party, or the character name of the party as I call it, mothers, and then I write what it is we're serving, and I include a hearing date. Even though the hearing date is up in the title block, I like to include the hearing date here too, just so that it's really clear what hearing these documents are for. Also, sometimes in a case there will be 10 different hearing dates over the course of many, many different years. Sometimes 10 different hearing dates over the course of 1 year. Those are usually really ugly cases. or cases with a lot of continuances. Anyway, so it can be difficult to know what hearing these documents are related to, and we need for people to be able to identify the documents that we're actually serving. So here we have, we're serving mother's response to governmental notice of motion or order to show cause. So I'm going to be quiet while I type this. And then I write for hearing 04/01/2020, and then we're going to serve her income and expense declaration. We're going to identify in the next section how these documents are going to be served. They're going to be served by depositing the sealed envelope with the United States Post Office with the postage fully paid. Now we're going to put in the names here of the parties who are served. In this case, it's going to be Sam Smith. And we're also going to serve Lassen County Department of Child Support Services. You'll notice that I'm putting both parties on the same proof of service. You can do a different proof of service for each party or one proof of service for all of the parties. I like one proof of service for all of the parties because I'm kind of lazy when it comes to that. So we either know Sam Smith or the other party's address or we don't. If we don't know their address, then we'll put instead of their address, care of Lassen DCSS. DCSS stands for Department of Child Support Services, and we will mail them a copy of the documents that need to be served on Sam Smith. Well, let's say that we know Sam Smith's address. Let's say it's P.O. Box 345. And that is also in some city. Don't know why I can't type there. I wonder if I can type elsewhere on the document. Yes, I can. Earlier, for some odd reason, I couldn't type elsewhere on the document. Man, why is this doing this to me? I have no idea. This is frustrating. Okay, well, this isn't being a very good example for me because I can't show you what we need to do. But we need to write in here the party served and then below it the P.O. box or the address. So in this case, we've got a P.O. box. Well, it's just being obstinate all the way around. Let's just pretend that this is working. For me, it's not. We would put Sam Smith's address here. We would put Lassen County Department of Child Support Services address here. We're going to leave the mailing date blank, and we're going to leave the place of mailing, the city and the state blank. Because let's say in this situation, we haven't chosen who's going to serve this document yet. The person who serves the document is going to fill out the date that the document was mailed and the place of mailing. And then they're going to date here, and they're going to print their name here, and they're going to sign over here. And they can't date the document a date prior to the date of mailing. It can be the same date, but it can't be a date before that date. Okay, so once we do that, we're going to print out the mostly completed proof of service. We're going to print out 3 copies. So let's pretend here that I actually have the address of Sam Smith and Lassen County Department of Child Support Services filled out. I'm going to print this and hopefully it's going to cooperate. It would probably help if I had some paper in my printer. Now, if you're doing this, it's kind of sloppy, but if for some reason your document won't work for you and you can't actually fill out the addresses here, it's okay. Print the document, you can handwrite the address. It's not the end of the world. I printed out that mostly complete proof of service by mail. I filled in by hand the address for Sam Smith and the address for Lassen County Department of Child Support Services. And because I wrote something on the document after printing it, I initialed so that there's no question later on that I actually wrote that in. What I like to do when I fill out a proof of service and it's not going to be a process server who completes the document, I like to highlight and put an asterisk next to the places that I need the server to fill out. I just put an asterisk in it in this situation. So we already went over this in the video. I went to the copier and I made 2 copies of the mostly complete proof of service. So I'm going to set aside the original mostly complete proof of service. And I'm going to set aside the mostly complete copy of the proof of service. Now we're going to prepare the other documents for filing. Pretend for a moment that this response to governmental notice of motion was actually filled out completely. We would have the name of the case participant in the title block, the court's address, the party names, the file number, the hearing date, blah, blah, blah. We'd fill it all out. That's going to be a different video. So just pretend that it's filled out. So here I've got the original, and I'm going to take the original. I'm going to staple it. And actually what I can do is I can take the original and all the copies, and I can just hole punch them all at once. We've got a legal hole punch that puts the 2 holes in the top of the document. We'll hole punch that. Now we will staple the original together. Now sometimes there are attachments to your documents. Those attachments are part of the document, even though they might have a different name. So if there were any attachments to this document, I would have stapled them behind the last page of this document. But that's not the case. There are no attachments to this one. So I'm going to take the original. I'm going to set it face down in a pile that we're going to call file copy. Now I've got 1 copy. Staple it. Set that face down in the pile called file copy. Take the second copy, staple it, set that face down in the pile called file copy. I've got all those together. I'm going to pick them up. I'm going to grab a paper clip. That's my workstation for my other computer. I'm going to grab a paper clip and I'm going to paper clip these together. So I've got the original and 2 copies. I'm going to set that down. We're going to need that later. Here I've got where I'm going to put service copies set 1 and set 2. So now I go back to, oh wow, that's really hard to see. Well, pretend that you can really see that. It's not even in focus. That's pretty terrible. Let's put the mouse there. Maybe that'll hold it in focus. Okay, so now I'm going to take the 3rd copy of the completed response to governmental notice of motion. I'm going to put it down under service copy set 1, and I'm going to take the 4th copy, I'm going to staple it, I'm going to put it down, bumping my camera, under service copy set 2. So there you go. Now we're on to the income and expense declaration. So with the income and expense declaration, we've got the actual document, plus we've got attachments. In this case, we've got a couple of pay stubs. So we're going to prepare this for filing and service as well. We're going to hole punch this with the legal hole punch. Now we're going to staple the original with the attachments. We're going to set that face down on the file copy stack. We're going to take the second copy of the income and expense declaration and attachments. We're going to staple it. Well, actually, it's the first copy. I'm going to staple it, set it face down on the original, take copy number 2, staple it, set it face down on the first copy. Now we're going to pick these up. I know this seems really elementary, but the reason why I'm doing it this way, well, now I can't, oh, here's my paper clip. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because when I first went to work in a law office, it just seemed weird how you went about doing this. And so if somebody would have broken it down as elementary as this, I might have felt a little bit more comfortable with it. So anyway, the original and the 2 copies of the income and expense declaration are all together. They're paper clipped. They're going face down on top of the response. Now we're going to prepare our service copies. So we're going to take copy number 3, staple it, put it face down in the service copy set. We're going to take copy 4. We're going to do the same thing on service copy set 2. Now we grab the proof of service again. This is a copy of the mostly complete proof of service. We're going to put 1 copy face down on service copy set 1. Put another copy face down on service copy set 2. And now we need to complete the envelopes with the postage. Okay, I've chosen booklet envelopes because this is kind of going to be a big stack. So what I would do is I would put the from address here, and you can either put your address here or you can have your server put their name and address, but I'm going to put my address. And I would actually write out the entire address, but I'm just going to put squiggles. And then it's going to go to Sam Smith. I would actually write out his entire address. I need to weigh the packet of documents that I'm serving and the envelope, and I need to put the proper amount of postage. Okay, so here's Sam's envelope. It's going to go face down on Sam's stack, so service copies 1. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing for this next one. Again, put your actual name and address, and this one's going to go to Lassen DCSS or Department of Child Support Services. You put their actual address there, weigh it. It should weigh the same as the other one. Put the proper amount of postage on, put it face down. Service copies set 1. So now what we do is we take service copies set 1, the entire stack, put a paper clip on it, set it aside. Take service copies set 2, the entire stack, put a paper clip on it, set it with the other service copy. Now we take our original proof of service, we go find a process server. So let's pretend for a moment that I am Sarah Jones and I'm going to serve this for Jessica Smith. I'm Sarah Jones, I'm Jessica Smith's friend. I'm not a registered process server. I'm just her friend. She baked me a plate of cookies to serve these documents for her. So what your process server is going to do is they're going to write down their name right here. So if I could find a pen that worked. Sorry, Sarah Jones. Okay, so because Sarah Jones crossed something out there, she's going to initial there, saying that that was really her correction. Now what Sarah or your server is going to do is they're going to write their home or business address here. The other party is going to have this information. The other party needs to be able to contact your server if there's a question in the future about how service was conducted. So we're going to say that Sarah also has a P.O. box, and it is 101112 Susanville. And so she put her entire address there. Now what she's going to do, or what your server is going to do, is they're going to look and they're going to make sure that service packet, or that service copy set 1 and service copy set 2 really contains all the documents that are listed here. So we're comparing, okay, we've got the response to governmental notice of motion, and we know that it was done for mom. Good. We've got mom's income and expense declaration. Good. That's listed here. We don't have the proof of service listed on the proof of service. It's not the end of the world if you did it, but it's kind of redundant. So the server can see the proof of service is there, though. That way the other parties can see what we're alleging was served. And the server would also write their information on the proof of service. They'll write their address and the date of mailing and the place of mailing, and they will print their name. But on the copy of the proof of service that goes to the parties, they are not going to date or sign, because they can't declare under penalty of perjury that they already served documents that they have yet to serve. So your server is going to write in that information on the proof of service. All is well. Server is going to take a look at the envelope and make sure that it's addressed the same as it is on the proof of service. When they've determined that, they also need to verify that there's enough postage. When they've done that, they're going to fold the documents up. They're going to put them in the address postage paid envelope. Let's just pretend that this happened for both parties. They're going to do that for both parties. They're going to seal the envelope. They're going to march the envelope straight out to the mailbox. They're going to drop it in the mail so that it can be mailed. Then your server is going to come back and finish filling out this original proof of service. So let's say that this document was mailed on 03/09/2020. And let's say that it was mailed from Susanville. Going to fill that information in, and then your server is going to sign their name. Now, if they, so they're going to sign their name, and your server is going to bring back this proof of service to you. So here we are. We've got our original proof of service. We now need to go make 2 more copies of this proof of service so that we can prep this for filing with the court. We took the original proof of service by mail and we made 2 additional copies. You'll notice that we make black and white copies, not color copies. Some people are color copy happy. You don't want color copies of a copy of a document. You want black and white ones so that it's easy to tell that you're dealing with a copy. So we're going to legal hole punch that proof of service like we did the other documents. We're going to put a paper clip on it. You'll see we've got the original and 2 copies. We're going to turn over our file copy set. And we're going to take our proof of service by mail and we're going to set it on top of the documents going to the court. And then we're going to take our binder clip. We're going to clip the documents together. Now we're going to take to the court for filing the original and 2 copies of every document. And for a lot of people, it seems counterintuitive to do it this way, but you know, they think of each set of each document in the packet as one complete set, but that's not how the court looks at it. You've got your proof of service. It goes on top so that the court can see immediately that the documents were served on the other parties. Some courts will refuse to file your documents if your proof of service isn't on top because they're dealing with such a high volume of documents that they can't fish through to find your proof of service. So make sure your proof of service is always on top. Behind that is the response to the Governmental Notice of Motion. Behind that is the income and expense declaration. There are a few ways these documents can be filed with the court. We can either take them to the court ourselves. We can send a courier to the court to file them. If you're in a law office, you can send someone from the law office to court to file them. You can mail them to the court. You can leave them in a drop box at some courts, or you can actually go up to the clerk's window and file them in person. I like to file them in person because I'll get them back immediately. And right now there are quarantine orders, so not all courts are actually letting you file in person. They're having you drop things in the Dropbox. So if you're not going to get your documents back immediately, make sure you keep a copy of every document for your records. And if you're not going to get your documents back immediately, make sure that you include an envelope addressed to yourself with enough postage to return all the documents to you. So what's going to happen is when you file these documents with the court, you're going to hand them over to the clerk. Clerk's going to take your binder clip off. You're probably not going to get your binder clip back, which is really a bummer to me. The clerk is going to take the paper clip off the first one, fan the documents out like this, file the original, stamp the original with a filed stamp, set it aside, endorse the copies with an endorsement stamp, set them aside. The clerk's going to do that to every document. Okay, file the original, stamp it with a filed stamp, set it aside, stamp the copies with an endorsed stamp, set them aside. Now we're down to our last document, the income and expense declaration. Again, fan them out. This is what the clerk's likely to do. Stamp the original with a filed stamp, set it aside, stamp the copies with an endorsed stamp, set them aside. And if you want to know what the stamp looks like, here's a sample. So here's a document that was filed. I redacted a bunch of information. This one was filed October 11th, 2019. So this is the endorsed stamp. This is what the court stamps on the document, the copies of the documents that you file. When you get those copies of the documents back, look at them and make sure that the date is the date that the documents were actually filed. If you don't get the documents back while you're standing at the window, you might not know that it was the date the documents were actually filed, but you'd probably be amazed at the number of times I see documents with the wrong date. The clerks usually have to change the date on their stamps by hand. I've also seen documents with the wrong year. So check that out. If you notice that the date doesn't reflect the date that the document was actually filed, let the clerk know before you leave. They will be very appreciative so that they can fix that problem on the spot. Okay, so the court takes their originals. I usually ask for my binder clips and paper clips back. I do that because I'm cheap and I really like my my fasteners and I don't want to have to buy more. So now we get back to the office, what we're going to do, or your house, whatever the case may be, and you've got your endorsed copies of all your documents. You're going to make a copy of every endorsed document for yourself, and you're going to put it in a file, or if you're like me, you keep this stuff electronically so you don't have to hang on to paper. Whatever you do, make sure you keep a file, a copy, and make sure you keep a backup. Now you're going to mail an endorsed copy of all 3 documents. We've got our proof of service, income and expense declaration, response. We're going to mail or email a copy to father, in this case Sam Smith, and to the Department of Child Support Services. Since we aren't actually serving these documents, you can mail them yourself. You don't have to have someone else do it, or you can email them yourself. If you send a letter, keep a copy of the letter in your file with the documents. If you send an email, keep a copy of the email. And if you do send it via snail mail, keep a copy of the envelopes. That way, if there's any question in the future about how the envelope was addressed, you can answer the question immediately because you have a copy of the envelope with the letter, copy of the letter, and a copy of the documents. So there you go. Thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll do what I can to answer. Please remember, though, I can't give you legal advice. You've got to go find an attorney who can analyze your case, your circumstances, figure out what's best for your case. I can only give you educational information. If you're representing yourself, you have to figure out what's best for your case. Tune in next week for another how-to video.